It's called The Devil's Disciple. Our plot is it's based around one specific teenage boy. His name's Ray. He's been missing from school for a week, and random deaths begin to occur throughout the town it's set in. His absence from school begins to raise suspicion with his fellow friends and the teachers. So the authorities become to get involved. He's invited to a friend's birthday, which he doesn't attend, and they decide that it's time they took action and finally found out what was wrong with him. So as they arrive at his house, they realise that he hasn't left his bed for a couple of weeks now, which immediately raises them from his suspicions. They speak to him and ask him what's actually wrong. He says he wasn't feeling up to it. So they leave him behind, but then as he attends school the next week, and then he's re-invited to another party, he attends. And as he is attending the party, his friend Dan begins to realise he's acting very strangely. And as he runs away into the bathroom to hide, Dana follows him. She walks in only to see the shocking life that he's actually on his knees praying for his life. When she realises he's being attacked internally by the devil, she turns to move and run away. But he turns round and, using specific eye contact we're going to buy, he's going to turn around and give her the look that you would typically get from someone that's actually been possessed by the devil. Then after they chase each other through the house and Dana runs into a bedroom, he's going to try to hack the door down, typically like you see in a lot of horror films such as The Shining, as he tries to break down the door to get inside. And as the light typically goes silent and she looks underneath the door to see if there's a shadow there and notices there's nothing there, she tries to escape. And as she walks out the door slowly and shuts the door behind her, you realise that he's standing behind the door, and that's when he'll attack her with the weapon that we've chosen to be a chain at a specific time.
The genre that we'll show will be represented first by typography, and then it'll open first with music. The characters will be shown throughout the opening scenes. Typically in most horror films, there will be a villain who's usually intimidating and menacing, and then will also be large in physical standing. The damsel in distress we'd usually have would be a woman that usually would date the football captain and would usually be represented as blonde and dumb. The hero will be represented as being very cunning and clever, but also when you see him will be a very normal and average person.
Typically you would see posters used in the horror genre that show the main character in their normal state, but we've chose for our specific poster that I created myself that it was going to be a mixture of both. So we've got half the person as he is usually and half as he is when he's going to be possessed.
There'll be a lot of shadow work to achieve in this, so we'll have a lot of different camera angles using like mid or close-up shot to get the person, so we could use the person's identity as being a big secret. The typography and the title of the sequence is typically a horror style by using a blood typing sequence, which will show blood dripping off the title, which makes it look more of a horror. There will be more typical icons of horror, like the weapon and the rain used to make the scene seem more authentic. So we'll have the title, and then usually you'll have an underlining of the title, and that will be represented by a pitchfork. The names in the production team will be also insignificant and small in writing. They will come up in different corners of the room in different colours, different colours used in horrors, using different blacks and different reds.
In the title, we chose to use a pitchfork as it's not only a weapon that could be an icon of the horror genre, but also it relates to the devil, which is in the title. This is the villain that we based our character around. After watching loads of different films looking for inspiration, I came to this specific character. Jake Gyllenhaal, he gave me the inspiration from the film Donnie Darko, because it shows how he has two twisted personalities. How one, he can just be a normal, everyday person, and in the second, he changes as he's also possessed, but influenced by a character in his life. He's an example as acting in specific films. He's casted as he changes the forms and conventions of the film, because with only one specific person and a villain, it wouldn't be the same sort of psychological horror thriller film that we wanted to base ourselves around. We would like someone to act in a similar style as using him, because the way he can change his personality and use his talents to create a feel that's also eerie, that makes the viewers feel uncomfortable. This is a trailer that we thought we might show, just to explain how we felt about the character we wish to show. We'll show this briefly so you get a feel of what it's like.
Now, in his 15th year, crystallized with the pain of puberty.
So, why do you move here?
My mom had been a restraining order against my stepdad. He has emotional problems. Well, I do too, having emotional problems with it.
Amazing friend.
Real or imaginary?
As it shows here, you can see how this character's influencing his life and already how it's changed him as a person.
Telling his experiences as commonly called daylight hallucination.
And that's it really. It's just the idea that he's the person that has a twisted personality, and it's really great person to base my character that I wanted to use around.
And here we have a little mood board that was made by the both of us, just to show a lot of different real villains in different movies that have inspired us. Like, for example, here we have Cape Fear, and we've got the boy from The Omen in the corner.
Typically, we would look into the characters from psychological thrillers, such as Cape Fear, The Shining, as they both use characters that are everyday people that aren't supernatural, like in such films as Halloween, because the character always seems to survive, and it's almost like they're being protected from something. The character that we'd use as the typical football captain would be basically so he can look attractive to the women, and who's really have like a good they basically look good, and they are quite cocky. This person typically stars in films such as American Pie, and I know that they aren't in this specific genre, but is a good person to act in this specific circumstance. We'd like to use someone who is a similar style, as he's clever and witty, and at the same he's still cocky and arrogant, which is a good mixture, and is not purely really clever. It's not purely really clever or really strong without a lot of wit.
And here we have another mood board, and we've used a lot of different heroes from different movies that have inspired us. And there's one here, for example, that I'll tell you more about later, is Scooby-Doo in the corner, because that's one of the first kind of horrors that was introduced to you as a little kid, and that has helped me watching some of the episodes to kind of get small ideas for the movie we're doing now. As I've already said, there's the Scooby-Doo one here, and there's also another one from Lord of the Rings, a character called Gollum, who also has two different kind of personalities, where he was another character called Schmeagol, and he had a little bit of a problem with a ring, and he then had two personalities that he couldn't get out of his head. So one minute he would be Gollum, and next he'd see himself as Schmeagol.
This is acting that can really, if you haven't seen the film already, that gives you a specific feel for what we had in mind. And how you use the two different camera angles to show how he changes. And that's how, really, that's another example of how he would look in our films.